Let me start out by thanking everyone who posted their questions, making this video possible. I've received a lot of positive feedback on these question and answer videos, and for this, I reiterate my thanks. Let's begin. Were you ever close to becoming a capo? The answer is a strong no, with the exception of being considered for two acting captain positions, one for Dominic Trusello's crew, and the other with Patty Delarusso and a new Brooklyn crew they were looking to make. The reason why I gave a strong no is because in our crew, our captain Big John wouldn't allow an official acting captain position like every other crew had in the family. If a wise guy gets a job at a pizzeria from a regular friend, does he get paid? And is he expected to work or just hang out? That would depend on the deal he worked out with his friend. Maybe he just needed the job to satisfy his parole, but most likely he's getting paid whether working there or just sitting around. Do associates get a say if the families want to exchange them? The simple answer is an associate has absolutely no say whatsoever. He could complain to his guy all he wants, but once that decision's made, it's a wrap. I've heard you say that guys didn't want Big John as a captain. Was there talk amongst the guys as to who they would like as their captain? I don't think anyone cared that John had a captain's position. However, most of us didn't want him as ours. There was never any talk of who they wanted as their captain, with the exception of my suggestion to Joey DiBenedetto to take a position. Why did you choose the Lucchese family? How long were you an associate before being proposed? And if the wise guy you're associated to doesn't want to propose you, can another wise guy in the family propose you? Once again, you don't pick a family, they pick you. It's not like joining a baseball team. And even then, a player gets drafted to a team. I ended up with the Lucchese's by circumstances. At the time, I didn't want to be a part of any family. My time spent as an associate, I believe, was just under a year. And it was circumstances, once again, that fast-tracked my induction. If you're on record with a guy, you belong to him. And if he doesn't want to put you up, meaning propose you, no one else could unless the guy you're with releases you. The next question, someone I believe messaged me about before, and I'll give the same answer. You do a favor by giving a parolee a job and a place to stay for a friend, and the guy robs you. Did the friend that asked for the favor, in essence, vouch for the person? The answer is yes, of course. If he asked you for a favor, then he's vouching for the guy. Is he responsible, and did he know that the guy was going to rob you? Technically, no. He had no way of knowing what the guy was going to do. Could you define capable in relation to being a Cosa Nostra? Being capable in that life means you're capable of anything, from giving a beating to killing someone. And the mob knows very well who's capable and who's not. Although earners are important because they bring money into a family, capable guys are worth their weight. The next question is either being asked by someone who's not been paying attention, or someone that doesn't know the backstory, or a potential troll. If Big John proposed you, why did you dislike him so much? First of all, it was Joey DiBenedetto that proposed me. Big John, as the captain, brought that proposal to the administration. As far as liking or disliking Big John, from the onset, I was nothing but loyal and respectful to him. Conversely, it was Big John who returned that loyalty and respect with the complete opposite. So the question should be, why did Big John dislike me so much? If two made guys from opposite families get into a fight and one is accidentally killed, would that result in a mob war in 2024? I highly doubt it would lead to a war. Diplomacy, believe it or not, is used more often than people think. Why? Because the mob understands violence brings heat, which could easily lead to indictments. Now, the member who put his hands on another member may have himself a problem. Who comes to a sit-down with you? Is it your captain, or do you pick somebody? Would you pick someone really good with words or a powerful person? You typically go to a sit-down alone, but can take anyone you want, and your captain usually doesn't get involved unless the two people sitting down can't reach an agreement. If you're not good at talking, I guess you'll take someone who is. I myself never had that problem. During a sit-down, if you know what you're doing, you're just as powerful as anyone else. How were associates able to finance houses and cars without proof of legitimate income? Another thing that's lost on a lot of people. Almost every guy in that life has a job, business, or something to show legitimate income. Someone in the comments mentioned no-show jobs. I got to tell you, in today's times, there's very few people that's offered a no-show job. Do you think Carmine Persico knew Greg Scarpa was an informant and used him as a hitman with a license to kill? I couldn't possibly know what Persico knew or didn't know. Personally, I don't believe he knew, which would mean him turning a blind eye to a high-level informant that was in his family, which obviously can cause total destruction within his family. Did the Lucchese family have Jewish associates like the mob did back in the day? Of course they did. And not just the Lucchese's, but all of the families had them as well. Who was Louis Navarro on record with? This person's asking about good looking Louis, as we called him. He wasn't with me. I remember him telling me he was around his cousin, and I'm not sure if the cousin was with the Lucchese's or the West Side. Have you ever heard of anyone associated with the life making a huge score and then walking away from crime completely? Personally, no, I've never heard of that. But I'm sure there were people who did just that. A lot easier for an associate to do than a member. Which were your go-to restaurants in the Bronx, if any? Sorry to disappoint, I didn't spend much time in the Bronx, and all my eating out took place in mostly Long Island, Queens, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. Would you say that Cosa Nostra is headed towards a camorra structure with smaller clans based on family and geography rather than the rackets, replacing the five families? The answer is no. I don't ever see that happening. Here's why. The five families remained intact for the past 93 years. I don't see that changing. Why don't guys in the life learn to speak sign language? They'd never get caught on a wire if they did. It's a good idea, but if they're in view of the FBI, they'll just have an agent who knows sign language transcribe what they're saying. Is it true Persico thought the gallows were traitors to the family and had to pay? I don't believe so, because initially, Persico was on their side, which would have made him a traitor to the family as well. If a captain gets pinched and goes away, and an acting captain takes over the crew, when he comes home, will he be the captain again, or just a soldier in the crew? That's an administration decision. They could either reinstate him, or just put him in a crew as a soldier. Same person, another question. Say I get put on record with a made guy, and that guy disappears for whatever reason. Will they appoint somebody to me, or can I choose someone? That all depends on the captain of the crew, if he wants to put you with someone else or not. If you're a guy who's a big earner, I'm sure they'll assign someone to service you. Same person, another question. Is a guy who comes home entitled to his earns if someone took them over? That all depends. Was someone appointed to handle whatever he had going on before he went in, or was his earns just taken over? He may lose that decision in a sit-down. Politics play a big part of that life. Joe Colombo was making such unwanted attention with the Italian-American Civil Rights League. Isn't it possible a commission approved him getting hit? It's very possible and likely. All that attention, especially back then, was unwanted. Then there's another theory that the government took him out. Who knows what actually took place? How was religion viewed in the mafia? And what was the Lucchese's relationship with the Greek mafia in Astoria? And what's your favorite pastry? As for religion, some guys were religious, some were not. I believe there was a Lucchese Bronx crew that were dealing with the Greeks from Astoria. As for my favorite pastry, it's a lobster tail. And now for the final question. Why did the family believe you could be an informant if you did 17 years incarcerated? Doesn't that prove you're a stand-up guy? Look, in all honesty, the fact that a guy did 17 years can be looked at as he stand-up, but that doesn't mean he'll always be. I know of guys who did 20 years, came out, got jammed up, and flipped because they didn't want to go back to the can. In lieu of Patreon, let me quickly mention the Super Thanks icon. You could find it by clicking on the three-dot drop-down, and it's put there for anyone who'd like to show appreciation for videos like this. In my situation, certain people with an agenda labeled me, something that in another family might not have had any success. But the Lucchese family has a history of doing just that. They've placed labels on numerous guys, knowing it was complete bullshit. So guys like Mikey DeSantis were schooled around that mentality. So for him, it was acceptable. And that's the reason I personally feel he doesn't represent a good boss. Someone in the FBI once said, what took place with me was the perfect storm. Not only was I labeled, but Patty Delarusso sat back and watched because with me out of the picture, he knew he had a better chance at advancing himself, which is ultimately what happened. Besides answering this question, a question more for the Lucchese family to answer than me. Here's where I'm at. I'm in a different place in life, and one I'd much rather be in than to be around that life and the people involved in it. I'll leave it at that. I want to say to young guys that are listening, who possibly look up to these people or want to be like them, keep in mind, sometimes it takes years for cancer to rear its head.